Okay, yo, what's up? I wanted to make a response kind of here to the Mr. Beat video and kind of interview that he did with Allan Lichtman, who is kind of becoming, I guess, more of a well known, famous sort of author and political commentator who uses these 13 keys that he says in order to predict presidential elections within the US. His sort of claim to fame is that he's predicted 9 out of the 10 of the last presidential elections, and that the one he got wrong was in the year 2000, where he predicted Al Gore. And kind of that's debatable whether Al Gore even ended up actually was a correct prediction versus not, because of the whole Florida court decisions and stuff that happened around that, obviously, which I won't get into too much. So first, I want to say I respect Mr. Beat a lot. I enjoy his content a lot. I've been a longtime subscriber of his. I think he makes excellent videos. I am also a fan of Allan Lichtman. I think he probably is a very smart guy, and his son, who is also in this video, helping him explain this from, I guess, less of a informed kind of PhD professor level political science perspective. And to give more of a general kind of people who are less familiar with those terms, explaining terms in a more understandable way. So he's good. Anyway, he's predicting Kamala Harris to win the next election. Just to like disclose biases or whatever, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I'm predicting Kamala Harris to win the next election, and so my bias kind of aligns with him. You'd think I would be in support of this prediction methodology or whatever, and it's hard to argue against 9 out of 10 of the last election predictions or whatever, and that he tries to make all these claims about these are objective kind of binary true false questions. They're not subjective and things like that, and then if other people have a better system of prediction, that they should go through the rigorous political science sort of academia peer review process in order to get that legitimized and whatever, which kind of he's done and not a lot of his critiquers have done, which I think is a poor counter argument against what I'm going to say. So the reason I'm going to say this is I think he has a good story, and what I'm trying to convey here is not that he's going to be wrong. That's not the point of what I'm trying to say. I think he's probably a smart guy who probably knows, and he's a historian or whatever, he probably is going to have a better than 50-50 chance at predicting elections, just based on paying attention to those things, being informed of how these things did affect things in past history and all these types of aspects. But I don't think a good story should get in the way of being skeptical and taking a critical thinking look at whether he is worth listening to in some more important way or more legitimized way, or has a higher qualification standard because of his previous accuracy compared to any other presidential historian or political scientist or whatever else. The claim that I'm making is that his prediction accuracy has no bearing on whether he's more or less qualified than anyone else. And the reason for that is that if you just had, say, 1,000 random historians, political scientists, whatever, and they were making predictions on presidential elections based purely on heads or tails coin flips, they just blindly flip a coin 50-50. If you had 1,000 of them, you would expect around one of them to get 10 in a row correct. Not just 9, and not 9 out of 10, but 10 in a row, so 9 in a row is like a lesser chance than just 9 out of 10, right? So this is like extremely, by pure statistics, pigeonhole principle, a person like him is expected to exist just by pure random chance, whether they have a good model or not. He is a statistical inevitability that something like him would exist. The other problem with this is that trying to make a presidential prediction model is kind of inherently just impossible at the current stage of the way things work. You have a low sample size. You get one data point every 4 years, okay? Now imagine that if you're trying to make a statistical model and you get one data point every 4 years. There are currently only 46 existing data points in the entire data set. Are you going to make a truly accurate model out of 46 data points on anything? No. The answer is no. You're not going to. It's kind of a pointless Sisyphean task. It's kind of doomed to fail from the outset, right? So that's one aspect, is that this model, is it cool? Is it fun to think about? Is it a nice exercise? Does it make you think about these things in a certain way? Yes, I'm on board for that. I think these things are worth studying. They're worth trying to understand. However, you should also recognize that there is no methodology or system or 13 keys. Why the number 13? Why not 14? Why not 12? Who knows? he has a whole book. I haven't read his whole book, but I'm sure he thinks this is the other aspect that I had issue with in this video and interview in particular was that okay, if it's just for fun, whatever, there's not really a harm here. I think it's bad for people to not turn on that skepticism and not recognize that he's not special. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. I'm a political science major. I just graduated or whatever with my degree. It makes me frustrated when people hold certain people in higher regards than others just based on statistical prediction accuracy when the actual statistics support the opposite of that. Support that he's not worth paying particular special attention to. Nate Silver is another example where he had some good predictions around Obama in the 2008, 2012 ish years or whatever, and then by 2016 turns out he was pretty wrong, and now people kind of disregard a lot of what he says because he's turns out not all that accurate, because it's impossible to be all that accurate when you only have 46 data points in the entirety of human history. Okay, at least within the US, obviously. The other issue I have is that he tries to claim that his 13 keys are objective, that they are binary true-false statements. However, I have a lot of issues with that because choosing which 13 things in the first place are the binary things that you're paying attention to, the choice of which the 13 are is a subjective choice, right? So you're saying that certain things matter more than others, and that is a subjective qualification. There is probably some data and some statistics which back up that certain things matter more than others, but you can't just say these are the only 13 things that matter and obviously nothing else matters, right? If I asked you, I just met you, random person off the street, maybe it's a hypothetical person, and I just have the chance. Let's say it's 20 questions. I can ask 20 questions. I can ask, is this person, male or female? How old are they? I can ask like 20 true-false questions. Does that mean every question that I didn't ask them is irrelevant to who that person is? Maybe I didn't ask, what they have as a hobby, or if they're right or left-handed. Does that mean that that person is automatically right or left-handed, or that right or left-handedness doesn't matter or doesn't affect their life at all? No, obviously something like that might affect their life. Maybe I didn't ask if they're colorblind. Maybe they are colorblind. Who knows? But because it's not included in one of the 13 keys and it's not a question being asked, it's assumed to be irrelevant when it obviously is not irrelevant. It obviously is relevant. It might be relevant only in a 0.001% manner, but it is still relevant, right? The other issue is that he goes back and forth. He says these are not subjective, they are objective things. And sure, maybe you can say that the exact 13 keys that he chose do have binary true-false questions, and that the subjective nature was in which 13 he's choosing, but that these are binary true-false things. But then also in this interview, you will hear him several times say people misuse this or they misunderstand this key all the time. And so that he has to clarify it, which to me supports a lot of evidence, if people are misunderstanding it all the time, that these are not as objective binary true-false things as he is trying to claim. I think there is reasons and definitions you can make that make them more or less true-false and more clear and objective, and if people are still having difficulty with it, I think those things are probably not as rigorous as he would hope they are, or people haven't read into them as much in his book and things like that detail them as specifically as he intends them to be. Anyway, so that's all I'm trying to say here is it's not that he's going to be wrong. It's not that I am unsupportive of completely making any predictive model anything. I think these things are very interesting. That's why I majored in political science. However, I think we get in a scary, slippery slope kind of area where we treat statistical inevitabilities by pigeonhole principle as being more kind of authoritative and commit a logical fallacy there in listening to them while disregarding other people. Just because somebody else maybe only got 8 out of 10 predictions right, maybe their model is probably more accurate. But when you're only looking at a sample size of 10, you're just going to have random variance. Turns out most presidential elections are about a coin flip. Like, they're not that, maybe they're 60-40. I mean, they're not that abnormal outside of the ranges of coin flips that just any random streak run of 10, the best model might get 4 of them wrong. It might only get 6 out of those wrong. But that model might actually be better overall when you consider all 46 compared to Lichtman's model of 13 here. I don't know. But my point is, you should take in and hold up and pay attention to all those other models, not just his models. And I think there's an overly outsized attention and focus being placed on Lichtman and his models currently, and that I think is kind of undeserved and is kind of critical thinking mistake that people are making that they should not be doing. That's all I'm trying to say here. Not trying to like attack anybody or anything. Obviously, still a fan of Mr. Beat and everything else, but I thought if people find that interesting to talk about or maybe to think about in a way that they haven't heard before, because it is a good story, right? Getting 9 out of 10, it is a good story. It kind of makes you want to just turn your brain off and listen. But I think it's good to always have that part of your brain on saying, okay, he got 9 out of 10. Does that actually mean anything? Well, okay, let's just do a sample coin flips. What are the expected chances of a person getting 9 out of 10 correct if they're just doing blind coin flips? Out of how many people do you need making predictions for that to be a statistically meaningful abnormality that supports his keys being kind of more accurate than we would expect statistically based on pure, coin flip randomness or whatever. And it turns out you don't need that many people. You only need like 1,000 people. I mean, probably less than that realistically, probably like 800 something. I mean, who knows? But if it was on the range of like hundreds of thousands, millions, then sure, yeah, pay attention, outsized focus on him. He's probably very likely to have a very good model at that point. But if you're only better than 1 in 1,000 random chance, there's a lot of people in the world and a lot of historians and a lot of political scientists, and somebody was going to have the exact same accuracy. There are probably several tens of hundreds or dozens of people that also had the exact same accuracy over those same presidential, past 10 elections or whatever. So that's all I'm trying to say. Hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.